Good afternoon, and we are back. Last day of the trading week. Very exciting activity happening on the NSE. 6.4 million shares already traded in equity and about 6.1 million traded in Safaricom. Largely foreign interests have actually dominated the market today. We'll give you an overview of this later on in the show. Today, we are taking a slightly different perspective. It's very easy to get into your investments when you're in the public space. But what are your considerations, and what should your considerations be if you're not in the public space generally? What should your legal considerations be if you're making any investments? They say, this is Africa. Sometimes you can never leave, like Hotel California. Would that be the case for your investments? Today, we are joined by the Group General Manager of AMC Africa Holdings, Mr. Patrick MWANCHA, taking us through the legal technicalities in this side of the world. Welcome to the show, Patrick.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. Tell us, what does AMC Group Africa do?
Thank you so much for that. Let me begin by saying that I'm very excited to be here, and thank you for having me. AMC Group Africa primarily has been a training and consultancy firm focusing on international management systems. These are international standards that are set by certain international organizations. We're looking at ISO standards, Gemba Kaizen, Lean, Six Sigma, Agile, among others. So what this means is that we hold the hands of companies that are seeking to achieve these certifications.
All right.
This has been our core business for over 10 years.
Okay.
We have since diversified, and we offer corporate courses for professionals who are upwardly mobile and looking to advance their careers or attain that promotion. So we have targeted skills that we condense into short 3-day to 5-day programs, because we're also considering how many days will you be actually able to take off from work to come and attain these skills.
All right, fantastic.
We have increased our scope. We are now in Uganda. We are now in South Sudan as well. We've done work in over 7 different African countries, and we are excited to do much more. Interesting.
Yes. So, and you're a lawyer by profession.
Yes, I am. Which
means that you actually understand the element of pushing businesses outside of Kenya, but more importantly, how do you secure your investments?
Definitely.
So tell us, in your experience, both at AMC and also in your own personal capacity, do you get typical questions with people asking you, how do I safeguard my investments? Is that a common area of interest, or is it far-fetched and only left for the corporates in this part?
No, definitely. It's a common area of interest, because a lot of times when you're going into business, you want to make sure that the money you're putting in won't just evaporate, that you will actually get back what you're putting in. And if you're lucky, you will actually make that extra money that you went in looking for. So an interest in safeguarding your investment is something that is a very common question.
It's a common question.
Yes.
Okay, let me bring it to the public space, and let's just start there. So some of the considerations that we have seen, at least this week, Mumias Sugar has been put into receivership by one of its debt holders, that's KCB. From a legal perspective, what does that mean for the shareholders that are listed?
Okay, so for the shareholders, the first thing that they need to be aware of is what kind of shares are they holding. So depending on the class of shares, they may have certain rights that they are entitled to. They may have certain requirements that they may need to meet, especially now that the receivership is undergoing.
Okay.
Yes.
And if they're ordinary shares?
If they're ordinary shares, then that means that there's certain interest that will have to be paid up first, especially those who are secured, before they can then receive their compensation.
All right. So that typically means if they had debt with the likes of KCB and other banks on a commercial basis, that would have to be cleared. Yes. And then if there was subordinated debt, that has to be cleared. So frankly, if there's nothing left, the shareholders may not necessarily get
100%. If the debt was not secured, if the shareholders did not have that security, then the secured debtors will have to be paid first. And if there's nothing left, they will be left holding the bag.
All right. I'll come back to you and ask you about what kind of classes of shares we should actually look out for. But coming back to just the element of the Mumias shares, from a legal perspective, you have heard about this trade. It started a long time. The revenue started dwindling. It moved from being a profitable company to being a loss-making company. From a legal standpoint, if I was looking at this company and I'm an ordinary shareholder, what triggers or what should I have been looking out from a legal perspective to tell me, okay, there's problems here, I need to start getting out?
I think the main thing that you should have been watching out for as an ordinary shareholder is the corporate governance structures that are in place.
Okay.
Because that is normally the key for organizations of that size and that magnitude. They are those that will lead an organization towards great improvements, which means the shareholders will be very happy. And if they're not in place and if they're not performing well, they're not in good health, then it may lead to the deterioration of the organization.
Okay, so corporate governance. What are the 3 top things that you look out for when you're talking about corporate governance?
So when we're looking at corporate governance, basically we want to see what are the structures that have been put in place.
These are internal structures.
These are the internal structures that have been put in place. We want to see what are the policies that have been put in place, and who is the talent that has come in.
And who's the talent.
Exactly.
All right, so it sounds to me like from a corporate governance perspective, you're looking at the people and you're looking at the leadership, and typically just in a simple fashion asking yourself, if this person came for a family party, for example, would I leave him with my 1,000 shillings, or more importantly, would I leave him with my newest iPhone and go for a day and make sure that it will still be there? Is that a good way to look at it?
Yes, it
All
is.
right, fantastic. Corporate governance needs to be the element of focus. Now, Patrick, you know, when you're looking at the NSC, I mean, a couple of companies have gone bust because we have this situation now that we're facing with Mumias Sugar. There's what's happening with Kenya Airways. There's what also happened with ARN. So is it a typical thing to look at corporate governance as a barometer when you're looking at investments before you put your money in, or as a trigger for when you need to be pulling your money out?
100%. I would say that if you're looking at investing, especially in large corporate organizations, you need to familiarize yourself with the corporate governance structures that are existing within that organization.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there any other thing that you need to look out for?
You definitely need to look out for, over and above corporate governance, you need to understand what are the structures that are within that organization. And when we're looking at structures, we want to look at what are they trying to achieve, and what have they put in place to enable them to achieve it.
Okay, all right, fantastic. Definitely. Okay, now let's get out of the public space, because at least there's a comfort that you have the Capital Markets Authority that actually looks at these companies, because they have to make filings on a regular basis, as well as the NSC. Now there's this other element of funding where a startup starts and they're always getting money from the 3 Fs: your friends, your fools, and family. So if you're family and you're putting money into some of these things, what are your legal considerations to protect your investment?
If you're family and you want to invest in a business, then what you need to understand is, one, how is the business registered?
Okay.
Depending on how it's registered, it may entitle you to certain things. So let me give you an example. A business that is registered can either be a sole proprietorship,
Okay.
It could be a limited company, it could be an unlimited company.
Also, the element of registration. Okay, hold on to that thought. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back shortly.